The Qin Dynasty, Ancient China for Kids. The Qin Dynasty only lasted for 15 years, yet it is one of the most famous dynasties in ancient Chinese history. Emperor Qin ran his dynasty with absolute control. Punishment for those who disagreed with him was swift and harsh. You could be put to death simply by suggesting another way of things to do. There was only Qin's way. Okay, so Qin was the ruler. He was an emperor. His reign lasted 15 years, and he was really strict. It was his way or the highway. Qin was the first man to control all of China. He died of natural causes, but during his brief rule, he called himself first emperor of China, and the name China stuck. Qin was a legalist. A legalist believes that people are basically bad. That's why it's necessary to control every minute of their life. Otherwise, they'll do bad things, which could hurt others. Qin developed a system of bureaucracy so that he could control every minute of people's lives. He divided his empire into 36 provinces. Each had two government officials in charge of it. There had to be two so that they could keep an eye on each other. Then he broke the provinces into smaller districts. Each district had two people in charge of it, and so it went, each unit getting smaller and smaller, and each unit reporting to the one above it. People at all levels were paid very well. Okay, so Qin was a legalist. We talked about legalists last week. So he believed that people were bad and that you should be punished extremely harshly for anything that you did. Okay, so he wanted to control people's lives, and in order to do this, he broke up his empire into 36 provinces or small towns, like small areas, and then he put people in charge of them, okay? So there were two people in charge of each little area, and he did that so that they could keep an eye on each other and make sure one of them wasn't like going crazy and doing things he wasn't supposed to, okay? And then of course they had people below them and they had people below them, and they reported up, okay? That's very similar to how our government still works today, except that we don't have the harsh punishments. Oh, didn't mean to move me. Qin developed a spy system. It was not enough to have two people in charge of each little piece so that they would keep an eye on each other. Qin also developed a spy system so that all people kept an eye on each other, and spies were rewarded very well. Okay, so basically, the two people high up in the government were keeping an eye on each other, but he wanted to make sure that they weren't doing anything wrong. So if you wanted to be a spy for him, you would get paid well, and you would just kind of watch and see, and if you heard anything, report it back to him. Qin had great power. His system of organization gave him complete control. He used that control to make huge changes he felt China desperately needed to protect herself. Changes. The Great Wall. Qin set people to work building the Great Wall. He believed the country needed better protection. Just as cities had walls built around them, he wanted a wall built around China. He greatly weakened the nobles. Qin took land away from the nobles so they would lose most of their control and wealth. He did not want the nobles to band together to remove Qin from power. Anyone who fought this change was either buried alive or put to work building the Great Wall. He greatly weakened the teachers and scholars. Censorship was introduced. Qin burned what he called useless books. If a book was not about agriculture, medicine, or prophecy, it was burned. Scholars who refused to allow their books to be burned were either burned alive or sent to work on the wall. Qin did not want his people wasting time. He wanted nearly all the people to grow food. Okay, so Qin, unless it had to do with agriculture, you guys, which remember is farming, medicine, which we know what medicine is, or prophecy, which has to do with like the gods and religious teachings. He didn't want any of those books around. He didn't want it being taught, and he would burn those books. And if the scholar or the teacher refused to have their books burned or tried to continue to teach something different, then he would kill them too. He would burn them alive. Okay, not good. Or they could go to work to build the wall. Okay, so that Great Wall of China, pieces of it still actually stand. He gave most peasants one of two jobs. Either a peasant was assigned to grow food or to harvest silk. If they tried to do anything else besides their assigned job, they were put to death or sent to work on the wall. If people were slow or lazy, they were put to death or sent to work on the wall. Okay, so if you didn't follow what he wanted you to do, if you didn't work fast enough, if you didn't believe what he believed, if you taught different things, you were put to death or sent to the work on that wall. He built public works projects. Qin built put some people to work building bridges, roads, canals, and systems of flood control. The people he assigned to do this work either did the work they were assigned to quickly and well, or they were killed or sent to work on the wall. I'm sensing a common thing here, you guys. So you do what he says, or you get killed or sent to work on that wall. He created a law code. His law code applied to everyone. He created a huge law enforcement group to enforce these laws. So that's like the police. So he created laws, and then he created a law enforcement group. So that would be like our police today. He created a system of standardization. Qin introduced one system of weights and measures, one system of money, the same written language, the same laws, all systems of standardization to be used all over China, and no one argued with him. Okay, so Qin decided that everybody should use the same money, everybody should measure things the same way, everybody should use the same language all throughout China and have the same laws, okay? Which actually makes it much easier to communicate and trade and do things, and no one argued with him when he decided to do this. Qin did not believe that he was cruel. His systems of protection, standardization, and job assignment probably saved millions of lives from flood and famine and war. Qin thought of himself as an outstanding leader. He used to say, "1,000 may die so that millions may live." Okay, so Qin didn't feel like his teachings or his ways or his laws and rules he put in place were mean. He felt like he was actually helping people. Um, and maybe he did. Okay, so he put in the protection of the wall. He decided that there was going to be one written law, one way to measure things. He gave job assignments. So by doing this, okay, there was less flooding, there was less famine, which is like starvation, being too hungry, and there was less war. So in a lot of ways, maybe he made things better and lots of people did live. That's the thought behind it. Qin had planned that his son would take over one day. After Qin died of natural causes, his son tried to rule the country. A peasant led a revolt against Qin's government officials, and people all over the country joined in the revolt. And the revolt was successful. That peasant became the new emperor, and he called his dynasty the Han Dynasty. Okay, so after Qin died, his son was supposed to take over. All right, but people were not happy about his son doing it. So a peasant, which we know is really low on the social hierarchy, led a revolt, and people followed him, okay, because they felt like he was harsh and mean, and they didn't want his teachings to go on. So people followed this peasant, and they revolted, which means that they were like, "We're not listening to you. We're not doing what you want anymore," and they won. And this peasant who did it, he became the new emperor, and he made it the next dynasty called the Han Dynasty, which we're going to learn about in our next reading.